minutes for questions. Okay. Please, sir.
Yes, I'm a veteran of Israeli Foreign Service. Your description worldwide, I have a complete question. Worldwide, which is actually dealing with supranational world integration. Extreme example of Canada, as you kindly gave, and also European Union. But I'm thinking all the time what lessons we can learn for Israel, which does not have defined even physical, geographical security borders. And I wonder if there is one example from the European realities that can serve us. It was not in a way mentioned, but the most obvious example in the post-war situation was the creation of permanent border between Germany and Poland, which was a very dramatic event. Other nice borders, all of us know, because it was dramatic shift and changes in moving a significant population of Germans from what is today Poland. So I wonder if from the general experience that we are talking about, bearing in mind this particular example, we can learn, especially bearing in mind that then there was a division between Germany and Poland, and now if there is an integration between both of them within the European Union. So is there anything that can be drawn lessons from that very dramatic event in the recreation of the post-war Europe?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Is this on?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Okay. You know that there's a very special context, and I think to be as brief as possible. The international context was all important there. The ability to think of future Europe in terms of a wider partnership, a wider community, that required rethinking the relationships between Germany and Poland, and that actually gave an impulse to getting over the legacy of violence. World War II, primarily, the main reason. But you needed that international context. The positive message of European integration and enlargement was there to promote, orchestrate a new European order. And I think you would need something similar in other contexts. You need a more positive international, supranational momentum to really get both sides to join and at the table and say, yes, we want to do this. I mean, that's, I think, a historical hard to replicate, however.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that when you look at all territorial boundary disputes worldwide, I edited an encyclopedia looking at this a few years ago. One of the lessons is that when you have major economic issues that bear onto the territorial disputes, in most cases, historically, we resolve them. When there are no economic issues bearing on the issue lasts forever, generation after generation after generation.
Okay. I would like to ask, because there was two kind of approaches, let's say. One, you spoke a lot about the function borders, and the other was security, which is the main issue now today, all over the world, I assume. Okay? So which approach is leading now the world? Please.
Well, I think the lesson from the research that I do that links regulatory systems to security shows you that security is seeping in, the bordering of movements everywhere. Because it's very easy for regulators, whether they're private and functional or whether it's dictated by states, to implement within the production chains some security measures. And people who, send goods all over the world have huge incentive to have their goods shipped as quickly as possible. And so if they stop at the boundary, it's a huge issue. If you look at the Canada-US border, for instance, if we pre-cleared, it's a matter of seconds. literally a matter of seconds. 90, 120, 200 seconds to cross the boundary line. But if you're not pre-cleared, it can be 20 minutes, 19 minutes, it's a lot more. And so in terms of just-in-time production, pre-clearance is absolutely key. And it's the same worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you like that?
I would just, I'm not crazy about the term, but I think hybrid threat encapsulates a lot of what's happening. It's about traditional threats, but threats that are now more insidious, more difficult to actually combat because they're psychological. They go to the heart of identity, of community, and they are there to divide and misinform and disenchant. And it's hard to deal with that, and it requires new conceptualizations of security that are more socially, culturally embedded.
See, one of the things that we have done about hybrid threats is that we use algorithm, and so we can rank in a way risks or risk factors, but it has tremendous limits. Is that we are only looking at previous behavior. So whether it's a network organization, like a transportation organization, what we do, security people in Canada will tell you, we work on the truckers. When you have millions of trucks going across the border, you don't care about the truck as much as you care about the driver. At least that's what the RCMP tell us. The problem with that is that you need to know their history, those drivers. And the more you know their history, the more safe or unsafe they are, but you can give them but when you don't have that, what do you do?
Okay. עדי, בבקשה. בואי הנה, שישמעו אותך.
Well, I think it's a very good idea. I think this is the direction that Europe has to go, not a multi-speed Europe, but really a federal Europe and a federal control of its external borders, and which to an extent already exists, but a much more forceful, let's say, policy environment that makes the EU into a strong actor. I think this is very important. There's a lot of resistance to this idea. This is going to be a major issue, and overcoming those blocks is going to be a major problem. But at the same time, it's having federal Europe is a politically, from a governance standpoint, a very important building block. But it's not going to solve social inclusion, identity issues. Who is in, who is out. And these are going to be those areas of weakness in the future that are going to make or break the European Union.
אוקיי. אחרון, בבקשה. אבל תעמוד שנשמע אותך. לא. אתה. כן.
Are you trying to develop a general paradigm, a general theory that will encapsulate the different aspects, or do you want to have a middle-level theory where
יש לך בבקשה.
you wrote the question of, from my point of view, strategy, tactic, and logistic. Strategy being the political economic, tactic being the social cultural, and the logistic being supply and demand, which to me it's fine. You brought in the virtual aspect, which makes it even more interesting, but not very palpably manageable, because the perceived and the imagined comes in,
Yep.
in addition to the concrete. So the idea
So
of...
what is the question?
My question is, how would you distinguish, how would you develop the sort of paradigm that would distinguish between the Indian in America and Mexico, the Korean in Japan, the Kurd in Turkey, the Scarbecois and the Anderlechtois in Belgium, and the South Sudanese in Africa?
Yeah.
Okay, we understood. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So I can tell you what we do today. Today we use biometry and we rank risk. So we use biometry and we can use technology to completely individualize this. I have an enhanced driver's license, which is completely biometric. I go to the US with this, I don't use a passport anymore. They have my entire history. So the European Union with Schengen 2, right, has a database with 500 million entrants. And they're developing bigger databases now. And the big issue is how many databases you have, because actually just one perfect one would be better if you could have the entire world into it, right? So that's the number one technological challenge. You could have the biometry of every single movement. You could, I mean, it's just a computer issue, right? But from a human resource perspective, it's a huge challenge and it's extremely expensive. And this is where the technology, in a way, is its own weakness, right? We can dream about it, and we have engineers telling us it's feasible. And all people who have studied humanities and social science know that technology always fails humanity, right? So I think today that we have a path, and that's the path that most rich countries are going. They develop databases and they try to track history of behavior. They use algorithms to do this. Now, I don't know what James is going to tell you.
Okay, James, do you like to respond?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's a kind of a central paradigm here. I mean, there are patterns, there are things that we can tie together, we can share experiences. I think it comes down to perhaps one of the toughest things. It's ethical. It's an ethical, moral question. And then it becomes really tricky. Do you have a universal sense of an ethic, of belonging, of human rights? This is the thing that we have to decide in terms of even thinking in terms of global governance.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
And hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Anat?